All right, guys, welcome back. Sorry about the mix-up. I got the recording back to where it needs to be. So here we go. We are going to finish this chapter.
I watched other hangings. I never saw a single victim weep. These withered bodies had long forgotten the bitter taste of tears. Except once, the Oberkappel of the 52nd Cable Commando was a Dutchman, a giant of a man, well over 6 feet. He had some 700 prisoners under his command, and they all loved him like a brother. Nobody had ever endured a blow or even an insult from him. In his service was a young boy, a pipel, as they were called. This one had a delicate and beautiful face, an incredible sight in his camp. In Buna, the pipel were hated. They often displayed greater cruelty than their elders. I once saw one of them, a boy of 13, beat his father for not making his bed properly. As the old man quietly wept, the boy was yelling, "If you don't stop crying instantly, I will no longer bring you bread. Understood?" But the Dutchman's little servant was beloved by all. His was the face of an angel in distress. One day the power failed at the central electric plant in Buna. The Gestapo, summoned to inspect the damage, concluded that it was sabotage. They found a trail. It led to the block of the Dutch Oberkappel. And after a search, they found a significant quantity of weapons. The Oberkappel was arrested on the spot. He was tortured for weeks on end in vain. He gave no names. He was transferred to Auschwitz and never heard from again. But his young people remained behind in solitary confinement. He too was tortured, but he too remained silent. The SS then condemned him to death, him and 2 other inmates who had been found to possess arms. One day, as we returned from work, we saw 3 gallows, 3 black ravens, erected on the upper Platz. Roll call. The SS surrounding us, machine guns aimed at us, the usual ritual. 3 prisoners in chains, and among them, the little pupil, the sad-eyed angel. The SS seemed more preoccupied, more worried than usual. To hang a child in front of thousands of onlookers was not a small matter. The head of the camp read the verdict. All eyes were on the child. He was pale, almost calm, but he was biting his lips as he stood in the shadow of the gallows. This time, the Lagerkappel refused to act as executioner. 3 SS took his place. The 3 condemned prisoners together stepped onto the chairs. In unison, the nooses were placed around their necks. "Long live liberty," shouted the 2 men. But the boy was silent. "Where is merciful God? Where is he?" someone behind me was asking. At the signal, the 3 chairs were tipped over. Total silence in the camp. On the horizon, the sun was setting. "Caps off!" screamed the lager eldest. His voice quivered. As for the rest of us, we were weeping. "Cover your heads!" Then came the march past the victims. The 2 men were no longer alive. Their tongues were hanging out, swollen and bluish. But the 3rd rope was still moving. The child, too light, was still breathing. And so he remained for more than half an hour, lingering between life and death, writhing before our eyes. And we were forced to look at him at close range. He was still alive when I passed him. His tongue was still red, his eyes not yet extinguished. Behind me, I heard the same man asking, "For God's sake, where is God?" And from within me, I heard a voice answer, "Where he is, this is where, hanging here from this gallows." That night, the soup tasted of corpses.
Alrighty, guys. So that is the end of this chapter. We will start chapter 5 later. But let's talk about this second hanging. So first, we've got the older child who's probably about Ellie's age, 15, 16, 17-ish. And it bothers Ellie, but no lasting impact. He's just happy to still be alive. The soup tastes great that night. Juliet isn't bothered. He's worried about when they're going to be able to eat. And then we've got this one. So at this point, we've got the little Pipel. So why was the Pipel being hanged? He was being hanged because he had knowledge of like sabotage and didn't report it, or he was part of sabotage and didn't report it. It's not really made clear if he actually had a part in it or if he just knew about it. But the Pipel was in the service of the Dutchman of the 52nd Cable Unit. The Dutchman was loved, and so is the Pipel. So this Pipel was loved, and he was beautiful. His face was that of an angel in distress. Whereas the other Pipels were often very cruel, and it gives us the example of the son beating his father because he didn't make his bed well enough. So then last one, what makes the hanging of the Pipel different from the other hangings the prisoners have witnessed? So first, he tells us right away that it's the first one that he's seen people cry during. Second, all of the prisoners refused to help, if you didn't catch that. None of the capos, not the lager capo, which are both prisoners, no regular prisoners. It didn't matter how much soup they tried to bribe them with, they wouldn't do it. We've got the fact that this little Pipel didn't die immediately, that they had to walk by and look at him literally like suffocating, strangling to death up close. And because of that, it had a lasting impact. Instead of just saying, oh, the soup tasted great, I'm so glad I'm alive, the soup tasted of corpses. So no, they didn't put people in it. It just ruined their appetite. All they could think of was that poor little boy that had been hung. So again, no, they didn't actually put people in it. It just, that's all they could think of. So that's all they tasted was that death. So that is what makes it different. So go ahead and answer all of the section 4 questions. There's some in one section, there's some in a second section, and then take the quiz. The quiz you may use the questions on, but you may not use the book. Alrighty, guys, if you have any questions, comment, and I will do my best to comment back. See you Wednesday. If I can get this to stop recording.